I think I should start this video off by mentioning what inspired me to make it. A while ago, I watched the entirety of Breaking Bad with someone who had never seen it. And after finishing the final episode, they told me that they would have preferred the show if it were animated. And personally, I really disagree with that. Which got me thinking a lot about these two different mediums of visual entertainment. Sorry for prompting this video by disagreeing with somebody, but at least I have the courtesy not to tell my YouTube audience who it was that said that. On a completely unrelated note, you guys should check out my sister's Twitch at twitch.tv/2bunt. Should the choice of using animation or live action to tell your story be arbitrary? I don't think so. Personally, I think the medium in which you tell your story is actually really important. Live action and animation are different in a lot of ways, and the qualities that are unique to each medium may or may not pair well with a specific story and its qualities. In fact, I think when developing a story, the way it utilizes the medium should be on everybody's mind throughout every stage of the process. Most people in these fields probably don't even need to think about this, especially because most people stick to one medium. However, suspend your disbelief for a moment and imagine you've come up with a story that you want to make into a film, or series, or internet video, or whatever. How do you decide whether it should be animated or live action? And I understand that this is usually a decision that doesn't even have to be made, but work with me here. I think the place to start is by getting an understanding of the strengths of each medium. There's a sort of unwritten rule that if it can be done in live action, then it should be done in live action. And I would have to agree that that's a pretty good rule of thumb. Things are often more impressive and more impactful in live action. Could you imagine if a movie with a lot of special effects like Star Wars or Brazil or The Thing was animated? It would lose all the intrigue of the special effects. A huge part of what makes movies like that so enjoyable is how the special effects work seamlessly to tell a story. Props, sets, animatronics, costumes, models, miniatures, rear screen projections, it's all really impressive when executed well, and it's something that's entirely unique to live action. These movies would all be less entertaining if they were animated. However, there are countless other ways that the medium of live action can use its unique attributes to be entertaining. Sometimes you just need to organize something that takes a lot of rehearsal and attempts to get right. Having a bunch of extras seems to get the job done. Imagine how much a shot like this would lose if it were animated. One director who I noticed doing this a lot is Michael Haneke, who seems to be able to direct each and every extra and make sure every person in the shot is doing something that looks natural. If this was animated, you'd be taking away all the communication it took to create a shot like this. And you'd have to cheat, or it just wouldn't be practical. Kurosawa used a lot of crowds to make the reaction and emotion in his films feel really big. Pair that with movement, realistic costumes and props, special effects, and historical landmarks, and you got something that feels really cinematic. There's also a great sense of realism here, as if the filmmakers traveled back in time and were somehow able to get footage of real samurai armies fighting without being seen. I honestly don't think that sense of realism is really possible with animation. One genre that I usually feel is pretty underwhelming when it's animated is action. Stunts and choreography are just so much more engaging when you can tell actors had to perform them, or cars had to perform them. Mad Max Fury Road took a bunch of cars to Namibia, Africa, and basically just filmed them destroying one another. And honestly, it's the greatest thing ever. I think a lot of this stuff can really just be summed up as how hard was it to accomplish? How many attempts, how much time and hard work did it take to do this and catch it on camera? Were you actually in the cold? Did you actually eat a raw fish? Did you actually just burn an entire house down? Or an oil rig? That stuff's mind-blowing.
What are you looking so miserable about? There's a whole ocean of oil under our feet. No one can get at it except for me.
One way to basically prove that a lot of hard work, planning, and attempts were necessary to pull off a shot is just by making it really long. Or better yet, make your whole movie look like it's one shot, or actually do the whole movie in one shot. Why not? It's more impressive. The oneer is definitely the most revered type of shot, but there's a way to make it even more impressive, by adding the other things we talked about. Add special effects, extras, action, and oh my god! Like, imagine how much time and organization and planning it took to pull that off. Like, it's amazing! There's also this one scene from Oldboy that also encapsulates everything previously mentioned, and it's also probably the greatest action scene ever. There's also some nice realism here because while this one guy is taking on a gigantic group of goons, he's doing it in a narrow hallway which lets him pretty much take on one guy at a time. Another thing that's really cool about this scene is they clearly had to build 2 hallway sets, one for the dolly and one for the POV. They needed one normal hallway and one with one of the walls taken off so the camera on the dolly could see the action, and laterally track the character's progress. Also, this dolly shot lasts for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of great choreography and clumsy acting that helps you truly believe that these characters are tired and afraid and beat down. Overall, it's just extremely impressive. Sometimes genre is everything. There's a reason that they don't make animated romantic comedies, and some genres are literally impossible for animation to do. Like Borat type movies, filming real people without their knowledge of the film that they're acting in. More movies probably do this than you realize. Under the Skin filmed real people in Scotland without their knowledge to capture the real world reaction and behavior to better illustrate the film's message. I guess Scottish people haven't heard of Scarlett Johansson? My point being, you can't film real people when your movie is animated. Documentaries are another obvious example. You can't make an animated documentary, right? Wrong! How could you possibly make an animated documentary? Tower is how. Because the event depicted in the film happened so long ago there was no footage available. So instead of cutting to footage, they just animate the event. Honestly, I hope more documentaries use animation to their advantage. Horror is another genre that is really only live action. Other than the internet, of course. And I really hope to see this change. I think it's because of the preconception that animation is only for children, but to me that's just such a waste. You can do anything with animation, so of course you can do really horrific stuff. However, I think there's another more justified reason. Horror is often stronger when it's grounded in reality. Things are often a lot more scary when you can imagine yourself in the character's shoes. Being able to imagine something happening to you is usually the best way to scare people. The closest thing I've seen to something that could be classified as an animated horror film is Perfect Blue. But the important part about that movie is that it starts off really grounded. It spends a lot of time at the beginning giving the viewer an understanding of the characters and their environment, and it all feels really realistic. Watch it and think about how much time they spend at the start just setting up things to happen in the rest of the film, and also just in Mima's apartment. And while I really adore Perfect Blue, most of this could have been done in live action. The first third especially feels like it's not really utilizing animation in any way. But I'm not faulting the movie for this, I actually really like this choice. The script really feels like it was intended for live action, and eventually Darren Aronofsky acquired the rights to the film and basically remade it with Black Swan. And honestly, I like these movies about the same. The movie Black Swan as a whole is pretty different, but there are little moments and scenes that are basically exactly the same. Some of them I actually think were improved upon by the switch to live action, but some of them I think were pretty much butchered. But the large majority of them are pretty much identical, so nothing was really lost or improved upon. Period pieces are another type of movie that I think pretty much always works better with live action. Come to think of it, I don't think I really know any period pieces that are animated. The best I can think of are Porco Rosso and Cowboy Bebop. One taking place in 1930s Italy and is about a pig pilot, and the other takes place in the 2070s in space, so those barely count. The real appeal of period pieces is being able to recreate an era and make it realistic in every way, so the audience can feel immersed in whatever time the film is set. Recreating or purchasing vehicles or objects from a specific time is part of the fun. Or if it's set way back in the past, recreating paintings. The previously mentioned Ran looks like old Japanese paintings depicting frantic, chaotic warfare. In Barry Lyndon, every single shot looks like a painting from the 18th century, and the end result is just so gorgeous visually. In general, movies with genres that require realism or have themes that adapt well to realistic portrayals should be live action. Obviously, crime movies like Reservoir Dogs or something like that just needs that sort of realism to be as enthralling as it is. If you want my number one example of a movie that would just be truly terrible if it were animated, my answer would be 2001: A Space Odyssey. The entire point of the film is that it portrays a vision of the future for human evolution that not only depicts pretty much every aspect of humanity's development, and it executed it with so much clarity that it's arguable that the film inspired multiple advances in human technology and accomplishment. I mean, for crying out loud, everybody agrees that this guy faked the moon landing. I mean, it's so convincing in its movie, it makes sense that people believe that. All of this, I believe, would be completely lost if the movie was animated. The visuals would lose all their clarity at realistically depicting the future for humanity, and just imagine if the ending was fake. Like, obviously it would suck, and it wouldn't be subverting the rest of the film's realism in the same way. There's really just one final strength I think live action has over animation, and that is performance. Although vocal performances certainly require a lot of skill when acting, but when someone's filmed acting, it's just more visceral and gripping, or at least it can be. Well, you can draw up something creepy and do a creepy voice for it. There's still nothing like an unsettling performance to really get an audience uncomfortable. And performance is obviously very important to characters. I mean, imagine Walter White without Bryan Cranston's performance. Even if you kept the voice, you'd still be ripping away his entire personality and character. Performances and mannerisms in an actor's performance certainly give character studies like Clockwork Orange, American Psycho, Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, King of Comedy, Wolf of Wall Street, or Goodfellas a big boost because their performances, mostly by Robert De Niro, really help the audience understand who the character is. Taxi Driver is the one that mainly sticks out in my mind. The main character's loneliness and transformation would just be ripped away if the performance was gone. It's something that animated movies kinda lack. You just don't have the same presence of an actor embodying a character in the same way. There are a lot of things you can do to make something impressive in live action. It's also probably the best form of storytelling at getting the audience to imagine themselves in the shoes of the main characters. It's often more relatable because it's real. It's really just a great medium for creating impressive images, but any medium of storytelling can be impressive, especially if you do something that's only possible with your selected medium. The main point I want to make with this video is that every choice you make when telling a story should have a purpose, and every choice should utilize your selected medium in an interesting way. It's pretty much what gives the method you told the story in purpose, and it's what makes entertainment entertaining.